Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round 7 of the Tier 2 Assetto Corsa Competizione AOR League, and heading through Cop's Corner now. We keep it very tidy through there. You can see we're about halfway through the session and we're yet to set a valid lap that's going to do us any good, so we're currently 16th. We're keeping it nice and tidy through the S section at Silverstone here. Preparation for an hour and a half race. We want to make sure we are in the best place possible so that we're not held up behind people. Coming towards Stowe, difficult to get the braking right. There's a huge bump there that can unsettle the car, but we keep it nice and tight, use all the track on the exit. We keep it nice and tight to this apex to get on the power as quickly as possible. Then you want to keep it nice and tight without hitting the sausage on the inside here. We've done that quite nicely. This is turning into quite a nice lap already. Very tidy through there as well, not much time given up. Now heading into the last tricky section of the track. First gear through there, usually I'd use second, but I just wanted a bit more bite into the corner, and we now power down onto the final straight of the lap. We're hoping that we don't get held up by Kiselev ahead of us here, heading into final two corners. Usually pretty tidy through here. Trail brake nicely and turn in early. We've gone quite wide there, that's probably a tenth we've given up, and then we turned in very early there, got on the grass, that's at least another tenth. I'd probably say I'm usually great through there, but I've definitely given up a tenth and a half through there, which is disappointing to see. But what's the time that we're going to cross the line to do? It is a 1:57.1, which is 7 tenths better than I'd ever managed. I'd done 2:57.8s, and that was it. I'd been in the 58s other than that, so I was absolutely delighted with that. A lap pulled out of nowhere, with mistakes in it as well. And you can see that puts us 7th on the grid, half a second off of pole position. If we'd have maybe been a bit cleaner and got those couple of tenths out the car, we maybe would have been 5th or 6th, but I'm absolutely delighted with 7th, to be honest, out of that. You can see Leroy takes pole position, the Roadhouse is up there in 3rd. A lot of the usual suspects towards the top, but it is a very competitive grid as we now move on to the start. Can we maintain position off the start, or are we going to fall back? Let's see. We go green, and we've not had a great launch. Gemia on our left hand side has got ahead of us quite easily, although I do think actually no, that was for position, so I'm down to 8th now, and we're passed again down to 9th, so not the best start. And you can see how there's a Ferrari that spins off to the right, and another Ferrari spins off to the left, so the 2 positions we've lost, we've gained back, and then the Mercedes that punted off, Michael, I believe it was, has backed off probably to let him back through, so we're now into 6th place, so we gain a position after a pretty poor start, so can't complain about that. Defending into Stowe, we get passed around the outside by J-Mott in the Lexus, which means we filter back into 7th, so maintaining position in the end, with Rico all over our back. Not the greatest start considering 2 cars ahead of us spun, meaning ideally we'd be in 5th right now, but I can't complain too much. Got caught on the inside and caught napping at the start, so not a disaster. As now our attention turns to just keeping with this lead pack. I wasn't sure what my pace was like. You can see we're a bit scruffy through this section of the track, as Gemia is very scruffy out of that corner, and J-Mott is as well. He's completely out of shape, and we've managed to pass him around the outside. Can we make work of Gemia too, as Rico hits J-Mott and spins behind? J-Mott's actually thrown it up our inside. I was not expecting a move there at all. I assumed his momentum was not going to be there, but it was a very lovely move from him. Caught snapping a little bit, and we're back down to 7th again. Looks like that's where we're destined to be at the moment. You see random punchline behind us, who been pretty exceptional in the wet with Roadhouse, but hasn't quite converted on that in the last couple of races when they're dry. Gemia and Jmot are battling now down the Hanger Straight. Let's see what happens in this battle ahead, if there's going to be any contact or if it's just going to be a clean pass. And it looks like Jmot is sticking behind, but he's going to go to the outside now. Can he make it work? Doesn't look like it. But he has actually, he's managed to find a gap on the inside. And now he's got the inside line for this right-hander, which puts him into the lead of this little train that's forming. Can we make a move on Gemia now? We're just not close enough. I was feeling pretty strong here, because I didn't know what my pace would be like. I didn't feel particularly good about it, but it's looking like I've definitely got decent quality pace and decent race pace to match. So we can definitely have a good result. If there's a car off to the left that spins, I'm not 100% sure who that was. Didn't appear on my relative leaderboard, but I think it was Porsche. So now we skip to about 8 minutes gone in the race. And you can see Jmot's pulling a bit of a gap to us here as we're stuck behind the Mercedes of Gemia. He goes quite deep into that corner and we show the nose there, which makes him go a bit wide. We were never really going for the move, we were just sort of trying to unsettle him a bit, which did sort of work. Now following in his slipstream, got a nice cushion behind us if we get held up in this battle anymore, but don't like the idea of letting them into within a second or half a second, as then it will start to unsettle me. See Gemia goes very wide into the final corner. Not going to be close enough to make a move into Cops though. Would be suicide, especially this far back. So all we can do for now is just follow. Hope we can get an opening later in the lap. It's a little bit scruffy there through Cops. Ours is just a little bit closer. We're within half a second, within maybe 3/10 of a second here. Keep it nice and tidy, whereas he's clipped the grass there, and we've actually managed to carry some pretty good speed through there as we switch to a replay cam. It shows us closing up behind him. Through Stowe, you can see we've got a much better drive out of that corner and through the corner, and we managed to throw it up the inside into what will be the final braking corner of the F1 layout. And still on the outside, and it looks like we're going to make the move. We do. That is one of the only overtakes I've done this season, and it felt very nice indeed. And the position is ours, which feels good. We're now into 6th, so we have made a bit of ground up now on our qualifying, and feeling like I can push on as well. Definitely feel like Jmot got away about as much as I was being held up, so I feel like my pace was pretty similar to his. As you can see now, about 15 minutes later, we've actually caught up to Jmot quite well. We've also got Will Freudman right behind us as well in the Porsche. He's very racy, it seems. You can see on board with him now, he's got so much more grip out of that corner, much better drive, and he's going to be on the back of us here. Is he going to think about a move? We go slightly defensive, and we're just going to be ahead enough to stay ahead, I would think. Yes, we are. So having to go defensive, that's not what I want. I really do feel like I've got the pace to get past Jmot here. Will Friedman is giving me something else to think about. Now, almost running into the back of Jmot there. Carrying much later on the brakes into that corner, it would seem. He's just not making the mistake we need. He's not he's keeping it in the right places at the right time. It's not like Gemia where he had an awful stow, which allowed me up his inside into the next corner. It's a lot more tricky as we offset our line a little bit to not hit the back of him. And that actually allows Will Friedman up our inside into the following corner, and I was caught completely napping there. I did not expect that as J-Mott goes onto the grass. So we've now lost a position back down to 7th, which is just frustrating. I felt like he was going to get past eventually. I wanted to clear J-Mott first to have a bit of a cushion, but just completely caught us napping as we skip to the next lap. You can see the Porsche getting all over the back of J-Mott, who goes very, very defensive. Very defensive, and the Porsche goes to the outside. We are following this, hoping we can find an opening through it. J-Mott can just stay ahead. Porsche runs quite wide through the final corner, and that allows us to sneak our nose up the inside. Drive out the corner. We aren't quite going to be there, but that does give us hope that we can maybe make a pass on Will Friedman into the next overtaking spot. And we've actually taken Kops much better than he has, and that's allowed us a little bit alongside, but we think better of it into the S section. Not quite there, unfortunately. So now we ride on board J-Mott, going very defensive again into the penultimate corner. He's keeping it very tidy on the apexes. He's not allowing any openings. As soon as he sees someone close near him, he goes instantly to defensive and then puts it on the apex. Brilliant driving, but this is not brilliant driving. He runs out wide out the final corner, and that allows Will Friedman to get past. If that had been us, it would have been us getting past. So it shows you got to try and hold position where you can. So it's frustrating Will Friedman got past us. It's now 57 minutes remaining in the race, and we've been in the wars a bit for the first half an hour of it. As you can see, we're still following. It's quite a nice little battle we're having here, with Random Punchline behind who's fallen away, so the pace of the battle is definitely pretty strong. You can see there's also a 15-second gap ahead to Leroy ahead of us, so in our own little bubble of pace, it would seem. So we now go on board with the Porsche of Will Friedman, and he's got a little bit of oversteer into the corner. He's overcorrected it, and he's had a bit of a tank slapper and spun round, so that is the end of the battle for him. You can see on board with us how close it was. We were committed to the corner, so thankfully I didn't decide to steer out of the corner, because I would have just smashed into him, but it was too late to do anything about it, as we skip now about 5 minutes later on. All over the back of J-Mott still, and we've got a pretty decent run on him here. It's probably not going to be enough to make a move, no it won't, but can we set something up into the corner after? Let's see, as we brake now for Stowe, we turn in very tidy, and we take a little bit too much curve, and we just get a bit of, I don't know if it was bottoming out or just an unlucky bump, but I thought I'd hit the grass, but I don't think I actually did. I think I just hit a bump as we then rejoin like an absolute pleb, and thankfully Rico was aware enough to avoid me, because that was one of the most embarrassing rejoin attempts I've ever done. And we rejoin in 12th as well, so all that hard work, one mistake and it's done. 12th place, as we decide to pit on that lap. There was no point. I felt like I probably had the pace on that little trio ahead that I didn't want to get caught up, so we head into the pits at roughly the halfway point anyway, so it's not the worst as we now come into the pits. And that's a pretty perfect pit stop. That was delightful. That's definitely could have happened on a better race where I've not just made a mistake. That would be very important, but unlikely to do much here. Now we need to try and make the most of these fresh tyres and climb up the order, as we now ride on board my fastest lap of the race, where I do just that, trying to absolutely maximise everything I can to get a little bit of an undercut on people that might be in battles and might be on worn rubber. So enjoy. can see we do a 58.2, a 1 minute 58.2, which is a fantastic lap. It's pretty much what I was doing in qualifying before. And we've actually managed to climb up to 7th place, so having a perfect pit stop and a bit of an undercut has helped us absolutely massively. Considering the tyres didn't feel like they were wearing for me at all, I feel I'm in a pretty good place for the rest of the race as we actually ended up in 6th. So we've maintained position despite that spin, which dropped us to 12th. We've gained 6 positions in the pits, which is absolutely fantastic. And now we cut a huge distance ahead, where the last 20 minutes of this race after pitting was all about trying to keep the gap of about 2 seconds to flat spun out in check, and also trying to whittle away at JMOT's gap to us, which was 7 seconds, but it's unfortunately been that both of those gaps have come down, gone the wrong way for us. JMOT's 10 seconds ahead now, flat spun out is within half a second or so of me, and it's the reverse of Misano, where I've got to try and keep flat spun out behind me for the rest of this race. Can't put a foot wrong, or it will all be for nothing. As Rotters pits, which puts us into 5th. He was, I think, going for a splash and dash, which I don't think has really paid off, as he was doing very poor lap times towards the end of his stint. Maybe he was holding out for some rain, but you can see JMOT's actually having to fuel save quite a lot, so we've caught him. We're only 3 seconds behind him now, coming to the last few minutes, last couple laps of this race, and we've got the message from our engineer telling us we're out of fuel, so it's potentially going to be a disaster. JMOT is definitely there for the taking. He's losing well over a second a lap to us at this point. He must be fuel saving like crazy. Flat spun out is in a great position to take advantage of this and get a great result as we enter the penultimate lap of the race with not enough fuel. We've just hit the 0 laps left mark, and essentially we fueled for pretty much exactly 1 lap too few. I've not paid attention to the fact that I'm consuming a decent amount of fuel, more than I'd ever been doing in practice or even in qualifying, I think, and I've simply just not looked at it and not amended in the pit stops accordingly. So you can see now the final sector of the penultimate lap, that spun out, gets a great run on us, and our mistake there basically gifts him the position, as there is a little tiny bit of contact, but we now turn our attentions to fuel saving, ultimately quite obviously in vain. I was hoping maybe I could chug along round the lap if it worked like that. It's like in F1 games, they'll put you in low fuel mode and you'll be able to do basically 20 more laps just really slowly. But you can see now, as we pretty much crossed the line slightly before, we've conked out. We just have no drive left, so that's it for us. That's the race. All that hard work, an hour and a half of driving pretty much at the limit constantly. So all that battling at the start, all that keeping flat spun out behind, all that chasing down JMOT for the last 20 minutes of that race was absolutely nothing. That perfect pit stop meant nothing. That spin ultimately meant nothing as well. So I may as well have just not turned up at this point. It was 9th is maybe a decent chunk of points, but not enough to do anything to the leaderboards for me, and I just wanted that 5th place that easily was going to potentially turn into a 4th place, as Flat Spun Out actually crossed the line just a 10th behind JMOT in the end. So I've got to think that definitely could have been a position in our favour. Maybe not, but at the very least 5th place was ours. Flat Spun Out wasn't, I don't think, getting past. I only made that mistake because I was so focused on my fuel. But yeah, last of the lead lap finishers, which is I think a bit of a habit I'm getting into now of just being the best of the the best of the worst, or the worst of the best, whichever way you want to look at it. But congratulations to Roadhouse, who wins for the 400th time this season in Danny Boy again with a strong result. So good job to everyone at the top.